How often have you built a commander deck, got good cards that synergize with it very well, but then the deck sputters out because the commander just won't
Stick around.
That's what the focus of today's video is going to be, is on commanders that if they don't stick around and you've built too heavily and leaned on them too hard, they're not going to work. Now, what brought this to mind was because I just did a video recently on Ivy Gleeful Spellthief, where I realized if she doesn't stick around, most of the cards in my deck are very medium and don't do enough to win the game on their own. And there's other commanders who do that kind of thing too, but if they don't stick, it's not going to work.
Can't you stick around?
Now, in that video, I didn't show a bunch of games where I went against like mono black and anything that was really heavily removal based, because they were boring games to watch, and I really don't want to do that to you guys.
Boring!
So what can be done to fix decks that are kind of over-reliant on the commanders? Well, with the Ivy deck, what I ended up doing is, as I was playing, I was yanking cards out of it and putting more and more things in there to try to keep her alive as the game went on. Protection spells, phasing spells, bounce spells, counter spells even, just to keep things out of the way so I didn't have to keep her dying left, right, and center.
Because I'm trying to stop you from dying.
But this is just one example of a commander. What other kind of commanders are kind of, build-arounds that can be dangerous? Let me give you some examples from my personal collection and some personal experience that I've had so far in paper and arena. First, let's talk about one of my favorites, the Locust God. For 4 blue-red, you get a legendary creature god, a 4/4 flyer, that says whenever you draw a card, create a 1/1 blue and red insect token with flying and haste. And it has an activated ability of 2 blue-red, draw a card, discard a card, and a triggered ability that says when it dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. This thing already costs a lot of mana, but if it sticks around, it can generate a bunch of insects to plague your opponents.
All we need now is to plague a locust.
But the spells that you use to do that are not a great idea if the commander can't stick around to actually take advantage of it. And what I'm talking about are types of quote-unquote wheel effects, such as Windfall and Wheel of Fate, or if you're really lucky and you have a copy of it, Wheel of Fortune. Those spells, you're going to be drawing extra cards, you're going to be generating extra things on the board to attack with, and you're going to overrun your opponents. And if you can't get the guy to stick around to take advantage of that, it's actually a disadvantage to keep trying to do the wheels and dig around, because you're just giving your opponents cards and you may not be able to survive that. And the same goes for any kind of passive card drawing effects such as Howling Mine or Font of Mythos that you might be packing to force extra cards out there and try to get the extra insect tokens out of. So this is one of those commanders where you got to be careful if you lean into him a little too hard. Another commander similar in design to the Locust God is Xyrus the Writhing Storm. For 2 green, blue, red, you get a legendary creature Snake Leviathan, 3/5 flying, that says whenever an opponent draws a card, except for the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, create a 1/1 green snake creature token, and whenever Xyrus deals damage to a player, you and the player each draw that many cards. Xyrus is kind of a mirror to the Locust God. Locust God triggers off of you drawing cards. Xyrus triggers off of them drawing cards. So you're actually wanting to feed cards to your opponent. So it's a high risk, high reward type of commander. But if Xyrus can't stick around, all of those wheels, all of those passive draw effects are going to backfire in your face, because you're just going to feed them their combo pieces, you're going to feed them their things that are going to let them win the game, and you're not going to be getting anything because your commander's stuck in the command zone because it was either locked down or killed a bunch of times. So again, this is another one of those commanders, if you lean too hard into it, it's going to flop. Moving on, let's look at one more from the brand new Dominaria United set that if you focus on him a little too much, it could become a slog to play if he isn't around to do his thing. Zur Eternal Schemer. For white, blue, black, you get a legendary creature human wizard with flying. It's a 1/4 that says enchantment creatures you control have death touch, lifelink, and hexproof, and you can pay 1 and a white. Target non-aura enchantment you control becomes a creature in addition to its other types, and it has base power and toughness equal to its mana value. That mouthful of keywords and activated ability are very powerful, but if Zur can't stick around, you're not going to get anything out of it. You're going to have a bunch of enchantments that either just sit there and passively do what they do, but you are trying to rely on them to attack and kill or gain life back or whatever, and they're not going to have that because you can start animating your enchantments and then he dies and they lose all the keywords. So then they're just, a 4/4 or 3/3 or whatever, like they're a vanilla creature that does nothing else. So it's kind of hard to lean into him. You really have to have protection, counter spells, that kind of stuff, or he's going to die and you're not going to get much out of your deck.
He gonna die for sure.
So what can you do if you're a little risk adverse to actually doing anything with a commander? Well, we can look at some of the more recent examples. Let's start with Shieldred the Apocalypse. Shieldred the Apocalypse is a 2/black 4/5 Phyrexian Praetor with Death Touch that says whenever you draw a card, gain 2 life. Whenever your opponents draw a card, they lose 2 life. This is just an all-around good card. It doesn't rely on you building anything around it. You can build towards, creating ways to force your opponents to draw a card using like artifact draw things like Teferi's Puzzle Box or Font of Mythos or things like that. But you don't have to. You can just put in some, black creatures that do good things for you, and she'll just slowly tick away as your opponents keep drawing cards, and you'll slowly gain life as you draw cards. So it's just an all-around good commander that you don't have to force a build around on. The last commander we're going to look at today is also from Dominaria United, and it's one that I'm working off right now in Historic Brawl. Shawna Purifying Blade. For green, white, blue, you get a human warrior 3/3 with lifelink that says at the beginning of your end step you can pay X. If you do, draw X cards. X cannot be greater than the amount of life you've gained this turn. As I said, I'm working on a video for this right now in Historic Brawl, so that video is coming soon. But anyways, I've learned that you don't have to build, some kind of weird dedicated like warrior deck or, life gain deck or whatever. You can actually just use ancillary life gain off of things like Soul Wardens, Prosperous Innkeepers, that kind of thing. And you can pay, 1 or 2 life or 1 or 2 mana a turn and draw extra cards and just keep your hand chock full of answers and full of things to keep going out there. And you can throw all kinds of different varied threats into the deck. You don't have to rely on the life gain threats, and she doesn't have to actually stick around on the board to actually do anything. Your other threats in the deck actually are good enough to carry the deck without her being around. She's just kind of icing on the cake. Hopefully everybody learned something today, and you can use this information in a good way to help with your deck construction and your card choices. As always, thank you for watching and have a great day.